line for you and me. Patients need what the doctor has said. Safe access now to the meds they've read. One love, one bite, don't you delay. Rights for the people in every way. We stand tall, we won't back down. Safe access is the anthem sound. Safe access is the anthem sound. The struggle is real, but so is the fire. For health and hope we climb higher. Stand with the ones who can't stand alone. For every voice deserves a throne. Compassion leads where the laws resist. A healer's heart can't coexist with barriers blocking what we deserve. The people's needs must be preserved. One love, one fight, don't you delay. Rights for the people in every way. We stand tall, we won't back down. Safe access is the anthem sound.
This production is brought to you by DHBN, WTHC Radio, and Stoner Records.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our weekly Patients for Safe Access podcast. And I just want to start out by saying that the guest today is an absolutely phenomenal woman. She is such an inspiration when it comes to Oklahoma politics and trying to figure out how to navigate Oklahoma politics. She is definitely one of the first people that I try to resource and talk to about what's going on and how to move forward. You guys have heard me say something in the past about Senator Connie Johnson saying something to me about, like, if it isn't written, it isn't real, and how I took that message to heart because she was so very right in it. So Senator Johnson has been in the political field in the state of Oklahoma for a very long time. She's had a very long career in politics before she even became a senator in our state. And she sat on the Senate seat for many years and advocated for many changes in our state and still continues to do so to this day, even though she's not sitting in a seat now. So we adore her. We love her. She's absolutely inspiring and beautiful. She's radiant. She's everything that you want to look up to when you're trying to navigate the politics in our state, I think. So at this time, I'll have Hippie bring her up, and you guys will get to meet Miss Senator Connie Johnson.
Hello.
Applause. Wow, that's right. Applause the puppies.
Yeah. I was just trying to think, should I go put her out? Because she's probably going to bark the whole time.
That's up to you. You can if you'd like to. So,
give me 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds.
We're fine. That's fine.
All right.
So really quick, while she's taking care of that, I'll just let you guys know that her 33-year veteran of the Oklahoma State Senate, she has been writing cannabis bills back since 2007 for the state of Oklahoma, trying to push for medical legalization in our state. And she has been met with great resistance in the state capitol for being pro-cannabis as a senator in our state. And she's done a lot for that. She's also, whenever I first met her a couple years back, we formed, somewhat of a relationship, friendship there. And I was even gracious enough for her to invite me to be on a panel with the NAACP. I think it was in October of last year in Oklahoma City. I was given the opportunity to speak about the issues that we have in our medical cannabis, in our state at that forum. So that was really nice. That was the first time I'd ever been given a speaking opportunity like that. And I think I did pretty good. I think so. So, Connie, Senator Johnson, she was also the first Black woman to earn a U.S. Senate nomination in Oklahoma history. So, she literally is part of the history books, right? I was just telling them about you being the first Black woman to be nominated into the Senate and how you literally are the history book. You know what I mean?
Yes, the first woman.
Yes,
That's even more amazing. Is
it
that
is.
what it says is that they've all been white men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
that happened. I didn't really realize that it had happened, but it was part of the journey. So I'll let you go ahead. I wanna
No, you're
you
good.
tell me
Actually,
when I
if you
want to
want
chime
to,
in.
you're good. You're good. If you want to tell us about your journey in Oklahoma politics, and I was kind of telling them a little bit about you being the one to push medical cannabis since 2007, and that you were met with great resistance for being a pro cannabis senator in our state, and yeah, kind of the journey of how you
Yeah.
helped medical cannabis get here.
I tell you, that is such a step in the journey of how I came to know what I know.
Hmm.
It just started way back in Hartshorn, Oklahoma, and
And
Powhatan,
Hartshorn,
Virginia, in terms of
Oklahoma,
my
H Town.
yeah, my legacy and my family and my genealogy and what is in our blood as a people, it seems. I keep hearing stories about my ancestors, my predecessors. I just buried an uncle in Portsmouth, Virginia, who was, he was a kingmaker. He absolutely helped politicians get elected, and they regarded him for that. And Congressman Bobby Scott was at his funeral, and he was active in the NAACP. And so we both came out of Holdenville, Oklahoma, where
Hmm.
his grandfather and my great grandfather was the person that they went to when it came to the people in the
Okay.
community of Holdenville. And I just always regarded Jake Mintz as being a very dignified man, but I'm pretty sure he was familiar with slavery. I'm just pretty sure he was. But he grew corn there in Holdenville, and I just remember him being that stately guy who was always. He didn't say much, but he could look at you and make you feel what what you needed to do. But I just think back to my family beginnings and the blood and the things we were exposed to. My great aunt was the one of the originating organizers of the state conference of the NAACP. And I used to ride up and down the roads of Oklahoma with her back in the 60s. And, when you think back about what was going on in that time, that really wasn't safe for an older black woman to be out there by herself. But,
Right.
she was on a mission from God, and he protected her. And, I remember some incidents. The biggest incident is that she would always drive on the left side of the road, which
Yeah.
you don't do that. So a lot of people were
Yeah.
just cussing at us because she wouldn't get out the lane. But she was an activist, an advocate. She ended her career as a dormitory mother at Langston University, Oklahoma's only HBCU. But I got a lot of my early exposure from being with her.
Hmm.
And then I can't say enough about being with my mother. My mother was the politician. She was the secretary of the American Federation of Teachers. She was the PTA president. She was the block captain. She was a young matron. She was a person who was engaged and involved and cared about people. And she was a teacher, and my dad was a teacher. And so I have this thing for children and believing that any and everybody can learn. All of these seeds were planted um, in my pedigree, and when I didn't even know it, that they would become the foundation for
Hmm.
everything that has happened in my life. It's not like I
Hmm.
orchestrated a lot. I think
Right.
very, I was very blessed to get what I got. I graduated from Frederick A. Douglass High School, the oldest high school in the state of Oklahoma,
Yes, ma'am.
um, where I had I'd been crowned Miss Douglas. I was the captain of the Trojets. There were people there who were building leadership into us. I remember Mr. Willard Pitts, and they just did an article recently about his brother who was killed in Vietnam. And
Oh,
Mr. Pitts, we were in his class when that happened, but Mr. Pitts believed in girls. He was the pep club sponsor, the cheerleader sponsor. He did the royalty. He did the yearbook. And it's because of him and people like him who poured into young women that
mhm.
I believe I was accepted into the University of Pennsylvania and received a full scholarship.
Yes,
And
man.
that's where life really began to take form. At the age of 18, I got to work on the 18-year-old right to vote constitutional amendment. I
Mhm.
got to work on a campaign of a local state representative. The interesting thing is that I was going to Penn, which was Jewish and Ivy League and pretty much lily white, but it was situated in West Philadelphia. So I could go across the street and be back in my neighborhood, because you can imagine the
Right.
cultural shock that I went through coming from an all black existence going to the University of Pennsylvania. But it worked out. And that is the foundation for how I became who I became, including I smoked my first joint for my 19th birthday. And, I understood when I came back to Oklahoma and worked for the legislature for 24 years, actually writing language about everything from birth to death, children, families, incarceration, education, mental health, um, physical health. I learned when I came back. Okay, I lost that train of thought, but which is what we'll do when we
Sure.
get older. But
I do that
I,
sometimes.
yes, literally. So I was saying that I learned about all of these issues by actually doing the research on them for
Hmm.
senators at the time
Like,
and
yeah.
writing the language
Mhm.
of the bills,
Yes.
and knowing the issues that were behind the bills. Um, Senate District 48, where I served, was created in 1965 behind the Voting Rights Act. Senator E. Melvin Porter was the first elected senator to that seat. Senator Vicki Miles LaGrange, and now retired federal judge Vicki Miles LaGrange, and Senator Angela Munson were the three people who had held that seat before me. And I worked
Yeah.
for all three of them. So I
Hmm.
really had a ringside view of what was going on in my neighborhood. Not only was I living it, I was researching it, I was writing about it, and I knew that disproportionately a lot of children in our community were being raised by their grandparents, mostly
Hmm.
because their parents were incarcerated for simple possession of drugs. And for women, it was money issues, cash issues. But I just, something was wrong with that. And there was a group called All of Us or None that I was affiliated with that helped people returning from prison. We looked at it in two ways. One, from a policy perspective, we want them to help us to change the policies. But two, from a resource perspective, what did they need to come back into society? Oh, it's so much summer, because then I got my master's at Langston University in vocational rehab counseling for people returning to society, supposedly from the military, but for me, it was for people returning from prison. And I
Right.
posited that they needed four things: supported employment, supported housing, supported education, and counseling, transportation and counseling. I hired a lady who had been in prison to be my executive assistant while I was in the Senate.
I
And
love.
I keep jumping ahead. She's now gotten her law degree and is going to be studying for the bar. And she's going to be, you met her, Gwen. She was on stage with us.
Okay,
Uh,
yes.
yeah,
At
we
the
took the seat.
Oklahoma NAACP thing. Yeah, at the
Hmm.
conference.
Hmm. I'm
That
so
was
proud of
cool.
you. You say NAACP. That's what we learned that day, wasn't it?
I did. I did.
Yeah, no longer can we say NAACP. We say
Right.
NAACP. So, and that's important. But Gwen
Yes, it is.
was
Very important.
a walking legal mind. She greatest legal mind I'd ever met. She knew the statutes that were leading to over incarceration, three strikes you're out, uh, consecutive concurrent sentencing, all of these sentencing schemes that drove the population into the private prison industrial complex system that exists in Oklahoma. So she
You
would
know,
tell me which, hmm,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
she'd
You're
tell
fine.
me which statutes were broken, and based on my knowledge, I knew how to fix them. I knew what to
Right.
write. I knew where to put it. I knew which committees and which chairs to get it to have the conversations with. You know, I
Yeah.
knew what I knew. That was what the deal was. When we got term limits in Oklahoma, Senator Munson had to leave, and I had to make a decision at that point because I had 2 years to go to retirement, whether to run for that seat. And God had put it in my head, why not you? And I said,
Hmm.
oh, not just no, heck no, right? I had two kids still in high school. I was recently divorced. I would had 2 years to retirement. The biggest one at the end of the day was I would take a $25,000 pay cut. And
That's a
but
pretty big
I
cut.
also knew, yeah, I also knew though that of the four people running against me, with all of their years of experience combined, they didn't have 1/4 of the experience that I had. But
Right.
beyond that, they had not received what I had received that made me feel an obligation to give back. That everything that I had received was never about me. It was about preparing me to do the work to help God's people.
Hmm.
And so I took a leap of faith. I trusted God. I was only able to raise $12,000,
And you won your campaign.
and I won. I beat uh, those four people, three of whom had been elected before. And then that was a special election. And so I had to turn around and run for the full 4 year term. And the one
Uh-huh.
lady who came in second ran against me. And then I beat her 68 to 32. So
Okay.
it was for me. What was for me was for me. She subsequently became an Oklahoma County commissioner and made more money, way more money than I did. But that was all good. I was pleased. I was grateful. I was honored to get to serve my district as the senator. So, I jumped right in on legislation about grandparents raising grandchildren, grandparents' rights, and so that was for the unexpired term. Well, once I was reelected, 2007, first of all, I started the master's program in Langston, which was crazy. And then I introduced medical cannabis because I knew I had 4 years before, if there was any pushback, I'd
Yeah.
have to pay the price. And
Let's.
that was Oklahoma's centennial year.
Was it really? Yeah, that's right. It was.
Hmm.
Okay. Give us 1 second. We're going to take our short break for our 420
Okay.
song really quick. And then we're going to pick back up about this and so much more because Senator Johnson advocates for many, many things in our state. And I can't wait to hear all of what she currently has that she's advocating for.
Oh man, that looks like it's our last one, man.
That is our last one, man.
Good thing we can scrape the pipe, bro. Never gonna be bankrupt again. 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 Gee! Morning had to scrape my pride. Knew that when I went to bed last night. Had a premonition in my head that I never gonna wake bankrupt again. Jumped on my bike and pedaled downtown on the lookout for the one John Brown. Found him in a corner parking lot, smoking spliffs, and said, "Here, man, you want to take a hit?" I said, "I'm never gonna be bankrupt again. Never gonna be bankrupt again. Never gonna be bankrupt again. Never gonna be bankrupt again." Went back home to put the seeds in the soil. Compost recipe from brethren I know. Water pH to 6.1. Jah in control of the ebb and flow. Planting seeds, putting flower in my hand so that I will never awake bankrupt again. I said I'm never gonna be bankrupt again. 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 Always bringing flower to my friends. Always connecting to the music of medicine. Always finding ways to sing. Positivity and healing vibes. Always attracting my tribe. Always vulnerable to the tides. Always accountable for my strides. Holding on, not folding beyond. Letting go and letting you know. Bankrupt isn't never gonna be a part of my flow. I said I'm never gonna be bankrupt again. 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 Driving around, I see John Brown and said, "Dead man," him said, "Him never gonna be bankrupt again." I said, "Hey John Brown, can I give you a hand so that you yourself will never be bankrupt again?" I said, never gonna be bankrupt again. Never gonna be bankrupt again. Never gonna be bankrupt again. Never gonna be Never gonna be bankrupt again. 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 Wow!
Every single day, 22 veterans take their own lives. Yesterday it happened, it'll happen again today and tomorrow, unless we do something. Operation Heal is on a mission to stop the pain, the death, and the heartbreak. Through the only thing that has actually worked for PTSD and chronic pain, cannabis. For far too many of our heroes, healing isn't an option. They're stuck in illegal states, living on a salary of $1,700 a month or less, denied natural medicine by the VA and force-fed pills instead. That's where Operation Heal comes in. Since 2023, they've built a nationwide underground network of cannabis caregivers and connections, getting veterans the plant medicine they need at zero cost when money's tight. Now they're going even bigger. Vetstock is coming, a powerful event where veterans will come together to convert a school bus into a home for a fellow vet who sleeps on the streets every night. You can sign up for canna cooking classes, grab some awesome merch, and make a donation that directly saves lives. Go to Operation Heal, HEEL, and click to help our vets, to get involved and help us bring plant healing to those who fought for us. This is for the people, by the people. No red tape, no politics, just action. Because the government hasn't just abandoned our vets, they've abandoned all of us. Operation Heal. We don't stop until they stop dying. Join the movement. Donate, share, and heal.
There we go. I was muted. We are back. Thank you guys. Thank you, Elevated Roots, for that song, Bankrupt Again. I don't want to be bankrupt anymore, but I'll be honest. I feel like we're bankrupt of responsible cannabis legislation in the state of Oklahoma. I don't think that what we voted in for 788 7 years ago, I don't feel that that's what we have in the program now. I feel like it's been modified and changed so much. And you have helped me to understand some of how that has happened and, the different ways to navigate legislatively. I even, when we had our Patients for Safe Access meeting and, you came to the Capitol to our meeting and you spoke and stuff, and you heard our story about the pesticides and the heavy metals and contamination and medical marijuana and things like that. That's not what we all voted for in 788. And I'm sure that that's not what you are trying to legalize back in the beginning in 2007 and forward. How does it get to that point, Connie? How do we fix it?
Yeah, take a breath. Because ultimately, what we want to talk about, I think, is 788 and what happened. just to have the complete history of that, I think will help us understand better and
Hmm.
maybe strategize better. But let's go back to 2007 when I introduced the bill calling for a study of medical cannabis, and I got disparaged as the weed smoking senator by Kelly Ogle on KWTV 9 or wherever that is. But um, I did. And no one said anything. There was nothing. I know Normal had been around in 1977,
Hmm.
but I don't know that I heard Normal endorsing the bill. There was like zero crickets. And so me being a Taurus, I reintroduced the bill in 2009. They're 2-year sessions. And in the
Right.
meantime, taking a lot of drama from people just because I introduced it, but, also taking that time to try to educate anybody who would listen in the legislature, because mind you, the Democrats were in charge at the time. Okay?
Different
The
time.
Democrats had an opportunity to hear my bill, and my own party wouldn't hear the bill. See, so marijuana is not about a party.
Mm-mm.
2009, by 2011, I think I had gotten really, really slick. And, knowing the system like I did, I introduced the bill in several different titles. One was in business and commerce, and another was criminal justice, and another was public health and safety, and another conversion was in mental health, Title 43A. I had several versions introduced so that it could go to different committee chairs.
Right.
So that knowledge was crucial at that point, but it still didn't get a hearing. But now, mind you, by this time, 2008 happened. You know what happened in 2008, right? Uh, Barack Obama won election, but he didn't
Hmm.
win one county in the state of Oklahoma. Not one, and this is a majority Democrat registered state.
Right.
So, so that tells you a lot in terms of Senate Bill 1's history and foundational notion in our state. They wouldn't vote for a black man. And what happened in 2010, by then the House had been taken over by Republicans and the Senate was tied. So I
Hmm.
had the chance to work in a majority Democrat, a tied body, and a majority Republican Senate. But by 2010, the state had gone totally Republican and still didn't get a hearing. And then in 2012, they heard my bill. Senator Brian Crane, I want to say, was the chair. I don't know, I don't remember. But they voted it down along party lines, five Republicans to 2 Democrats. There were only 2 Democrats on the committee, and Senator Jabbar Shumate voted with me. He supported me because he's got the same issues in North Tulsa. But they voted it down. Now, mind you, the Coalition to End Prohibition, Green Country, there were 3 or 4 advocacy groups that had formed in the meantime.
Okay.
You mean what I'm saying? Green the Vote. You remember
Hmm.
those? And each one of them had their take, their game plan, their players, their drama. And it was just like, for me, interesting watching, like, as the mother hen, watching all the stuff going on. And
Right.
then after they voted the bill down, again, I just want to I just want to know that, say that the knowledge that I had to know what to do, how to do, when to do, was nobody else had that. So I called for a rally at the Capitol,
Hmm.
and all of the patients came. The patients came. We did, once they voted it down, we did a public hearing. We invited the Stanley brothers in from Colorado. We called it the ABCs of CBD. And all of these patients showed up. Well, my motivation for introducing cannabis, I tell everybody, was criminal justice reform. It wasn't
Right.
about medicine. It was about, well, maybe they'll go for medical if they won't go for recreational. And it was not only no, it was heck no, right? But that was my motivation. When these patients showed up, I can't remember the young lady's name, but she was like 16. Oh, and Amy Dawn Hildebrand, and her son Austin had to move to Colorado. There were 24 refugee families, marijuana refugee
Mhm.
families from Oklahoma in Colorado, and Amy and I became very close. And that's when I learned about the medicine. It was at that point, 2012, 2013, that I learned about
The
cannabis
medicinal.
medicinally.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you had been fighting for it for
I
way
thought that
longer.
was amazing. Well, again, because it was a
Right.
means, medical was a means to stop my people from getting arrested.
Hmm. No,
But you know what I've
absolutely.
learned? You know what I've learned in the intervening time? That it was even more so something that could help women in my generation who were strung out on opioids like Oxycontin and don't know if they're sitting or standing, walking or falling. There's an opioid addiction in the black community that is going uncommented. Nobody's saying a word about it. I mean, I saw a lady once, she was riding on a scooter, and my daughter, who works for a pharmaceutical company, she said, "Mom, she's spaced out. She didn't know if she was moving or, and she felt the scooter was moving under her." But that's a real epidemic, and so cannabis legalization has addressed that epidemic, and nobody's really talking about that. And it's so crazy because the black community who has been most affected, and the black preachers who've been the most disparaging, but every last one of them have a card, does not deal with the reality of this plant is making a difference in people's lives.
Right.
The women, just people who are, oh, here's what I was trying to think of. Now you got little old women who, any product that has hemp or CBD or anything in it, boy, they be, oh yeah, I want some of that. I want some of that. So it has allowed people to be free in saying what they really feel. And
Hmm.
it's a shame that in my community, again, I have been disparaged by the local ministerial leadership who then support other candidates because they hold that against me. The policy that saved Oklahoma during the pandemic, that has had the greatest economic impact of this century in the state of Oklahoma, and they go and don't want to support me because of money and supporting um, the person who the powers that be decided they would give the money to. So that'll
Well,
that'll take us a little into the conversation about how this happens, right? But
right.
let me just say, I was trying to summarize for you the pathway. We had that public hearing. People came to the Capitol. The people at the Capitol left when the marijuana people came in. Uh, And then 2014, remember, I left to run for the U.S. Senate. But that same year, I had a full legalization petition. And the unfortunate thing is that you can't do two things at once. I couldn't run for the Senate and
Right.
circulate the petition, but we had a very well written, I believe, all purpose full legalization petition that was written by Attorney David Slane and his office in 2014. And I will put that up any day for anybody to look at and read it. And I believe right now, compare it with State Question 837's provisions, because we're going to talk about this too. It's so cyclical, because 837 is our last hope. It's the last possible effort under the existing laws governing the initiative petition process. 837 can still stay under the other rules, but anything we do after that is going to be subject to some onerous, next to impossible conditions in order to circulate.
Right.
So we will talk about 837, what's in it, good, if there's anything bad. I'll tell you, I've not read it. Maybe we could do another podcast and actually dissect the bill, right?
Right.
But it's kind of like we got to go with it, whatever's in there. So 788, you remember the name Chip Paul and all those guys, and
Yeah.
they had enough money to circulate a statutory but not a constitutional, so that's how we ended up with 788, which essentially meant, and takes us back to your question from the beginning of the show, it essentially meant that the legislature could change the statutes, and that's exactly what they've done. They've not changed them in proactive ways that would address like patients' safe access. No. Or Good Samaritan laws, or anything constructive and positive that would promote and round out this policy, right? They've simply thought of ways based on their misinformation, their ignorance, and their downright, I can't even think of the word to say. They just hate marijuana, but they love alcohol and they love opioids. They just disparage this thing that God created, which to me is a sin, because God created in Genesis 1 and 11, and those are my numbers, 111, and he created every seed-bearing herb and said it was good. So whoever disparages this plant, to me, is blaspheming against the Creator. That's serious to me. I want to just let that sink in.
Right.
These people who refuse to be educated and informed. I was speaking to a preacher yesterday, and he said, yeah, people abuse it. Well, this is true. People abuse a lot of things, but let's talk about why they abuse it. Let's talk about the trauma and the conditions that cause people to have to feel the need to self-medicate in the first place, and some of them more than others. And do we have any alternative systems out there for helping people navigate their mental health issues? So, but at least they don't get behind the wheel of a car and go kill somebody when they abuse marijuana. Mostly they go somewhere and try to find something to eat and take a nap. But people really, people really disparage people who medicate. I've never seen, I'm not talking about
That's
your
like
medicine.
snooty thing.
Hmm?
People look at it like a snooty thing, like they rub their noses up at it, like, oh, you smell like marijuana, ew, you know.
And it's even beyond snooty. It's disdainful. It's
Mhm.
like you slime, you love scum of the earth person, you about something that God put here for us.
Mhm.
Now I'm gonna end everybody's. Let's just a true moment of what you call it, disclosure. Smoking is not good for you. It's not. It's just not. There's no way you can say taking smoke into your lungs is good.
Taking what?
Smoke into your lungs is good for you. But the edibles do tremendous work. They are effective. The oils, the topicals, um,
The
it cures
salves and stuff.
the
The
salves,
salves.
the
Mhm.
suppositories. Um, they have done tremendous uh, care. They provided tremendous care.
Yeah.
They cure cancer. It cures cancer. Um, it helps. Well, and so this the commercial while we were off talked about the veterans and
Mhm.
PTSD and the high
Mhm.
rate of suicide, average 22 veterans a day. And veterans are one of my top two issues, children
Mhm.
and veterans. Who wouldn't love a
Yep.
veteran? Who would not
Right.
appreciate a veteran for what they did for us? Just to go to
Absolutely.
basic training, it's like I couldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that. I already knew. So, but I appreciate the people who did. And for them to
Absolutely.
come back and be traumatized to the point of depression and everything that they're going through, suicide, and us not be willing to figure out a way to help them is unacceptable. I think we could segue off into psilocybin as
Mhm.
the next panacea for needing to educate policymakers, because there's some support already. I want to say
Oh yeah, there is.
Senator Representative Pay out of Lawton had a bill a couple of years ago, and he's not feeling enough support to run it again. But and we're ultimately going to talk about what we can do, what we have to do, um, because it involves each of us. We live all over the state. Each of us reaching out to our policymakers and holding them accountable, educating them,
Mhm.
letting them know what you expect them to do. I expect you to, if you can't be a co-author, I expect you to at least vote for psilocybin clinical trials for veterans. Um, and that's the role that the people can play. So 788 passed by 58%, meaning people got registered and they actually voted.
Yep.
They have not voted since. Um, if anything, the voter participation is going down lower and lower with every election. Oklahoma had the lowest voter turnout in the nation in 2024, November 2024.
No.
The recent election here, 13% turnout. I like to highlight the 2022 gubernatorial race where uh, the leaders of the party, Democratic Party, decided to recruit and incentivize a Republican female to change parties, and they ran her as the Democratic nominee against me. And that was 17%. That was record low turnout. Democrats did not go vote because they weren't motivated to go vote for a Republican.
Mhm.
But people spend a lot of money to convince people that their votes don't count, while
That's true.
policymakers are doing everything they can to take away your right to vote. What they're doing by changing the initiative petition process
Hmm.
is taking away a right. And you know, them motherfuckers did it. They literally did do it in such a way that the people can't even call for a referendum because they put an
Hmm.
emergency clause on it.
Okay, that test positive. That brings me to Senator Bergstrom. And we
Uh-huh.
had advocated all the way through the process of getting a pesticide expansion within the Oklahoma medical marijuana industry. Okay. Because right now the state of Oklahoma tests for so little, and we were just advocating to test for more so that we can make sure our medicine was clean, right? Got it all the way to the floor, and it ends up getting struck out by Bergstrom. And I'm
Why?
like, I don't understand why, to be honest. I really don't. And I've not had the patience to like have a conversation and call out to him yet to talk to him about it, but I do want to, you know what I mean? Because you're right about a lot about the voting. We need people to get out there, get registered, get voting, but not just about getting registered and getting voting, but being active within what you expect for your future. And as disheartened as I am as in an advocacy point at times, like it's still so important to go up and talk to these people, share your experiences, tell them whether or not you oppose something or you're for something because they don't know unless we go and tell them. And
Yeah, but you got to work smarter.
mm-hmm,
You just one person,
mm-hmm,
but you have the drive and the motivation because you understand what happened. You know what happened. And
mm-hmm,
Bergstrom deserves your strategic assault. And that's not a bad thing. That
yeah,
simply says that you find out who all is in his district. And let's put those people together and tell them what he did. And then
mm-hmm.
give them a format, a
The
sample
ability.
letter to send in, to call, to text, to assault him. That's why I say a strategic assault.
Mm-hmm. I
Assault
got you.
him with their thoughts as people who elect him.
Right.
And have a date to do it when he's going to know, oh shit, they came after me that day. Set your date
Right.
because he can fix it next time. He can make it up to you. And if he doesn't, one of these people needs to run against him. I don't care if you can't even win. Just let him know that
He got
he doesn't get to
competition.
do that. He doesn't get to do that with no consequences. He's arrogant. How dare him strike out something that could help people? Because people don't. I think it's good for you now to share how crucial this issue of contaminated medicine is. How people don't even care because it's cannabis, but the damage that is happening to people who are trusting their medicine.
Yep. And trusting the agencies and government in charge to legislate it and regulate it properly and effectively and functionally, and none of those things are happening.
Well, so they don't. I mean, there's some. Anyway, figure out how to. Where's his district? Where is his district? Where does he live?
I'm not
Where does
sure.
he
I'll
live?
have to look it up and see. Anthony, if you're on
Oh,
here, what
okay, there you
district is
go.
Bergstrom in? Because I think Anthony's in the comments. Let's see here.
It's in the
Um,
Sinister.
I don't know. Let's see. Hang on. I'll look him up real quick. I'll Google it.
And people may think that that doesn't matter, but what else you doing? What else you gonna do? What else? Do something.
Mhm.
Like my mom would say, something, something, do
District 1,
something.
he's
Oh,
District
that's in
1.
the Panhandle. It's in the Panhandle, isn't it?
It says
House
northeast
district or
corner.
Senate district? House district or Senate? He's a House or
Um,
a Senate?
Senate, Senate District 1.
Senator Senator Bergstrom.
So, Oklahomies, if you are in Senate District 1, or if you know that Michael Bergstrom is your representative, please take this opportunity to reach out because, yeah, we advocated really hard. We spent a lot of resources last year financially, advocating for these changes. I was able to set up meetings and facilitate meetings with agency heads and attorneys from multiple agencies, and really felt like that we had had a huge success in the movement for patient safety in our medical industry. And whenever, I realized that that got completely stricken out, and it could be another 3 years before we could actually see change now because of that. That is like, to me, I don't know how we take the next 3 years or however long it takes to do this and how we accept, the bare minimum testing, knowing that there's failing products left and right. So whether it's in tobacco, hemp, medical marijuana, we deserve to have more pesticides tested for.
So that's a crucial piece in terms of knowing the process. And I hear you saying that because they didn't vote it down, they just took it out of the final conference committee report. So I don't think there was ever a vote against it, from what I'm hearing. But had there been a vote against it, you wouldn't have been able to bring it back up next year. And if there was a vote against it and you can't bring it up next year, you can still bring it up the next legislative session in 2 years, not 3.
Right. But then to
Okay.
get through that entire session to the end of it before it gets approved would be, yeah, at least
Not
2 years out.
necessarily. Not necessarily. No, no. Depending on the job and the work we do in the meantime, because it's not just Bergstrom, it's the Senate Republican leadership that
Oh,
needs
absolutely.
to feel the burn, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so we're talking a statewide organization effort for every legislator, especially the Senate leadership, Republican leadership, to get it about this issue. Tell them, look, we got this all the way through the process, and then for some unknown reason, it got stricken on the floor, and whoever believed in it enough to get it to this process still believes that, except for some parliamentary procedure, you know, the people are going to still be subjected to dangerous
Yep.
contaminants. So you didn't, yeah, I haven't heard you say you've written that yet.
No, ma'am, I have not, but I will be getting on that.
That's what it's got to say. That's where it starts. Write him and tell him he didn't.
Absolutely, I will.
And, and CC somebody at the bottom. I don't know who that would be, but let him know that you telling somebody else too.
Hmm.
CC the veterans,
Right.
the veterans organizations.
Hmm.
But basically, he knows what happened. You fought hard, you educated, you got everything to the bill, and then it gets to the floor, and for some is yet to be explained reason, he reneged on it, and now, we want to just confirm that is still available, that you can make it up to us next year, or if that in fact means we can't do anything till the year after that. Ask him these questions, these
Hmm.
queries. And
Absolutely.
so given that status, just writing to share with you our disappointment, I
Always
heard,
be professional when you reach out, people. Don't lose your cool. Always be
yeah, our
professional, respectful before
disappointment.
you reach out to the subjects.
Disappointment is professional. Our concern for the safety of patients, like we've always had, and just real concern that it's kind of in limbo right now. And we sure love the opportunity to talk with you about a plan going forward to
Absolutely.
fix this. So there's the letter, Summer.
Hmm. I know.
Play this
I got
back,
you.
and you can put the letter together. And
I appreciate you so much for
I think
everything,
that's
girl.
I think that's the start. That same document can be used to outreach to the voters in his
Hmm.
district and explain what happened. You could see, you know how you can hit on Facebook and it says highlight and the
Hmm.
message goes to everybody. Yeah, put it on Facebook too. Put your open letter on Facebook to him. I guarantee you he'll see it
Right.
and write him and do the hard copy letter.
Yep.
But at highlight, you're gonna be reaching out to everybody. And you want to certainly reach out to the folks in his district.
So, oh, Ellie. Sorry, that's my mom's dog that time.
What kind of dog is it?
Ellie, come
What
here.
kind-
Come here. Come here. Come on, get up here.
Ah,
This is my dog sister, Ellie Monster.
hi, Ellie Monster.
So,
mine is a Shih Tzu. Her name is Lacey.
oh, nice.
She would just be she would, huh?
A friend of mine just got two Shih Tzus last like weekend.
They some cool dogs. She'd be
Mhm.
very busy till she settled down though, but she's loyal, she's
Yeah.
dependable. She's what, 11 pounds and thinks she can take on a pit bull. And my dog is a racist. My dog is a racist. She really is a racist. No, she really is. My next door neighbor
Yes.
confirmed it. Yes, my dog
Oh.
is a racist. Yes, she
Well, some people dogs don't
really
like
is.
something in uniforms. Maybe a certain shade too.
Yeah, it just depends on what they grow up with. So she's a rescue. And
Yeah.
I inherited her from a white lady who died of cancer. And
Oh.
her husband they had a disabled son, and he wasn't able to take care of the dog and the son, so he let me have her, and I've had her now for like 6 years. But I know her orientation as a puppy was she never saw black people,
Okay.
right? So now my next door neighbor is very dark skinned and his wife is kind of light skinned. And one day the wife was at the fence playing with the dog and she's just flagging her tail and everything. And then
Uh
he walked up and the dog went to
huh.
like he was gonna harm this woman. And so my neighbor said, Connie has fought all of her life against racism and injustice to end up with a racist dog.
Maybe she just don't like men.
Well,
Does she live with other
whatever.
men?
She watches the house. That's all
Yeah,
we gonna say. You can't
that's
get near
good.
my house and she's not gonna bark. So that's her
Right.
job. That's her job. Yeah. They're
All
good
right. So
dogs.
let's
Wonderful dogs. Okay, back to the
see.
work. Back to the work.
No, you're good. You're good. Comment wise, we had Reefer Ronnie. He said hi. And
Hi.
Charles
Hi.
said hi. And the hippie over here, our host, he says, you have long championed cannabis reform. What first inspired your advocacy in this space, which we covered that one. Okay.
Confirming,
Howdy.
confirming it was grandparents raising grandchildren because their parents were incarcerated mostly for simple possession of marijuana. That was the criminal decriminalization first inspired me about cannabis.
Mhm.
Okay.
But since, like, tons have inspired her.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
see. Chad Bibler says blessings and love
Hi,
your strong
Chad.
women.
Hi, Chad.
Anthony said hi. Ronnie says, we love you, Connie Johnson. Please run for governor to straighten out the mess in Oklahoma.
I second that. Hello.
You have support in this household.
You know, hey, we 788, 58% of the people could decide
Hmm.
something. If
Oh, I
we
know.
harness that power, if we
Yep.
inform and educate and strategize,
Hmm.
58%, because yeah, 58% could do that.
Yep.
It's, I don't know where we're
Same.
headed. I know 837 is a must. Would you agree?
I think it's going to
837 is a
be,
must.
I think that it's a good opportunity for things to be not necessarily fixed, but moving parallel with each other, recreational with
Yeah.
medical. So I think I would love to see our dispensaries be able to financially succeed. And I know that recreational would absolutely help their sales. You know what I mean? Definitely want to see
Well,
that happen.
and it brings a
But
lot of
for me,
challenges with it. I think it brings a lot of challenges as well that need to be navigated in the legislative setting. Even though that's constitutional and it can't be touched, I think there's a lot of residual stuff that's going to need to be addressed legislatively, that you're going to need leadership that is sound and focused and experienced to navigate, especially when it comes to the black market. I
mhm,
think we can't let some novice be at the helm who, first of all, disparages it, but who has no clue. Or, in some cases, I think some people were actually participating in it, um, leaders. Um,
right?
but
Can I say a name? No, I don't want to say a name. Oh,
inform,
good.
inform, we've been duped
Yeah, we have.
many times,
Nope. No, I think 837 has a
and
lot of
we
potential.
keep.
But it scares me, Connie. It scares me because, like, we don't have our medical program harnessed to where everything's safe for the medical patients. So how are we going to distribute out to the
Mhm.
like recreational side too?
The way you do that though, it has to be in the policy arena, in the where you can, and that is with the right person in the governor's seat, and a strong cannabis advocate in the governor's seat, someone who
Mm-hmm.
understands where the policy needs to evolve to, and can toe the line and hold the line when it comes to going toe to toe with the legislature, right?
Yes.
Because then the legislature gets held accountable by the 58%. We must weigh in. We cannot continue to act like we don't have a voice and that
Absolutely.
that voice didn't do some things. And what?
Yep.
Y'all making my neck hurt. That's all I can say. It's like, what,
We
what's
need
all
you
it
to be
is? What does
governor.
it take? We need to do what it takes to make that happen.
Yes, ma'am.
I was telling someone the other day, don't even think about it. If we don't have $5 million because of the dark money, there will be dark money coming out. The state medical association will personally write the check to oppose Connie Johnson anytime she does anything because of the threat of cannabis to allopathic medicine. That's just a given. They weighed in on that recent Senate race here in District 48 because I was openly talking about putting a joint resolution on the floor to send it to a
Yeah.
vote of the people, right? Yeah, they got in and contributed to my opponent with the robocalls, and
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
our community has to be fortified and ready against the 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 powers of the dark.
Yeah.
And that's the money that comes under Citizens United. And there are now innovative ways. We talked about this at the NAACP meeting too, the Black Unicorn Fund. There are innovative ways for communities to raise money without raising money, because just using social media and the stock market.
Yeah.
So that's a possible funding stream, but it takes money unfortunately, it takes money. It just does. And if you got to have the money to do it. You could say, oh, well, you could do it using social media, but I've experienced them shutting your social media down at a crucial
Yeah.
time. Yeah, they did that to me. So you can't do that. So let's talk a little about how we connect with our community. And our community is huge. It's people in cannabis, people in incarceration, people with loved ones who died in the jail, people in adult protective services, and people with mental illness. All these communities of environmentalists, right? How do we communicate? How do we harness the information to be able to talk to each other? And ultimately, I would love, number one, to just continue to pursue this strategy of getting people to just apply to vote by mail as a way of knowing they are registered, knowing when to vote, having advanced information about who's running or what's on the ballot. All these benefits that come with simply applying to vote by mail. But when we get them to do that, to get them to also share with us their email address, cell phone number, so that we can create our own database of people we know we can count on, of people we then send a text message saying, did you get your ballot in the mail? Have you made a plan to vote? Do you know that you can do this, and that, right? We gotta be intentional about activating our community's voices. Because nothing else will work. It's just not going to work. We're going to be saying the same thing this time next year until we get that piece done, until we get that piece figured out.
Well, let's see what else we got here on comments. Old School says, good afternoon. I love you, Connie Johnson, for Senate 2024 volunteers, and Summer Parker. I don't know what he means there. I'm not running for no offices. Let's see. Michelle says, why do bills have to have so much stuff? A good, short, clean bill would benefit the world. So why do people put so much? Is it because they don't want it to be a loosely written bill that they have to put that much language into them?
So there's two approaches. I think you're either going to create new law or you're going to amend existing law.
Okay.
Right? So let's say if you're creating new law, like 788 was new law. They just wrote out what they want, right? I don't know. Some pieces of 788 might have been amendatory. But if it's where you're going to amend an existing statute, you go in there, you put in the new words, you underline them, you strike through the old words, and that's what ends up causing a bill to be so wordy.
Okay.
But a bill but I think the bigger question is, how do these bills all get grouped in together and why? So, a bill goes through, comes back, got amended, they can't agree, so they send the bill to conference committee, where conference members from each side of the rotunda come and work out an agreement. And then, but the leadership has already said, well, you can do this, this, and this, and y'all can do it in this bill. So they put everything in the conference bill. And then if everybody's in agreement with it, it's an up or down vote, right? You don't get to change the conference committee version. So why do so many things they first of all, they have to be germane. They have to have the same topic, same title. But they have an agreement from the leadership of what can go in a bill and what all can be included. And I'm not sure how many bills they had this year, but I thought, and this is a sidebar, I thought it was just very interesting that they came together and overrode state vetoes. And
I did
a lot of
too.
a lot of things got done, like especially the murdered and missing indigenous appropriation
Yeah.
was basically what it was. Yeah, that was so raunchy of him to repeal that, to veto that.
Mhm.
That just was heartless. And his reasoning was even more heartless. But so tell me about 837. Break it down. Have you read it in detail?
I have not read it in detail. I have talked to Jed a few different times about it, and I've even had him here on the podcast and stuff like that. And he talks about it having sections in there for patients' rights and things like that, which is great. It doesn't, as far as I could tell. Again, I haven't read every paragraph yet, but what I have read, I didn't see anything like specific on what those patient rights that are being protected with 837 versus with 788 maybe are, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, my only concern with 837 was recreational period. And I mean, I voted yes for 788 and I voted no for recreational last time. And the reason why I voted no for recreational is because I don't think that we're ready. Like I said, we can't get a quality, safe product put out onto the shelves that we can ensure is safe to the patient 100%. Well, as close to 100% as possible. You know what I mean? We can't do that yet on the medical side, but yet we're going to open it up to a even bigger market of people to consume potentially unsafe product.
I voted no because it was statutory. I do know that 837 includes the reduced fee for veterans regardless of their disability rating
Yes.
for the
Now
medical card.
That I
like
agree.
that.
Love that part. Yes, I do too. Love that part. And I mean, overall, I mean, like I said earlier, the dispensaries need the help. The dispensaries need the sales. I know that if it, does pass, that the, increase in those sales is going to be great for those dispensaries. We want those mom and pops to survive. We're tired of seeing them starve to death out there. Trying to, And
let's talk about who's behind it. So you said Jed Green. Who is that? The Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Orca.
What's his group? What's his name?
Oklahoma's for Responsible Cannabis Action. Orca.
Oh, Orca. Okay, so they're one of the groups that were created subsequently. Remember I was telling you about Green the Vote and all of those. So Orca is one. Was that Bud Scott?
I don't know that Bud Scott was Orca. I'm not sure about that. Jed, I think Orca.
I think Jed and Bud were together at some point. But Bud was the brother of a Tulsa legislator. And I can't remember his name. And he was a pretty cool guy. But, that's how this whole thing has evolved over years. So what I wonder is, because Jed had access to the 2014 petition, whether they even looked at it, whether there were any similarities again, because that petition.
Are you talking about 818, 819? Or yeah,
Mm,
no.
no, you're talking about
Okay.
780 and 788. I mean 780 and 781. What was those?
When I talked to him about
2016.
okay, then maybe I'm thinking something different.
No, so this would have been I'm not even sure of the number. I'll have to look that up, but it's out there. And to what extent does 837 reflect any of that? Or just
Right.
what does 837 propose that's innovative and different? And I don't know, because again, I haven't read it, but that's what I wonder about.
My
And
understanding is we took the good parts of 818 and 819, I think it was, and like pulled that over, and that way, like it already had the language from those that was incorporated into this one.
so Orca is the funder.
I'm not sure that the funder, like the co-author, I think Orca is.
Who paid for Orca?
I don't
Who
know
who
who the.
paid who paid for 837? Who's paying for 837? Who's
I
at
do
the
not know who
forefront?
the sponsors are.
That's important to find out.
Mhm. Mhm. And I'm actually not sure how to find that out, so I was hoping you could tell me that too. I was going to ask you that later.
Well, whoever, like you said, Orca filed it, right? Orca filed the
Mhm.
petition. So I think you'd only be able to find out through Orca's perhaps private channels about who contributes to Orca. Do they have to report anywhere, or are they a 501c4? They must be a 501c4 because they're doing political stuff. How is Orca structured? We could figure
Oh,
that
I
out.
have
We
no
could
idea.
research
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Would definitely have to.
with the either the federal could tell us how Orca is structured. In
And I
which
mean,
case you have no way of knowing who the funders
we
are.
can
But
probably ask him. You know what I mean? He
it's
may just tell us.
huh?
He may just
Say
tell us the
what?
answers if we ask him. You know what I mean?
He may,
Like,
but it would be interesting to know. Yeah, not a problem.
mm-hmm.
Jed and I ran together for Democratic Party chair and vice chair.
I did not know that.
Yeah, we go a long way back.
I gotcha.
You know that song say, "You and me, girl, we go a long way back." That's a romantic one, but no, this ain't romantic. I forget when I met Jed. Ow! I know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was maybe 2013. It was after the 2012 vote. Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
So let's see. Hippie put on here that the district that Bergstrom is in, for any of those that are wondering about that, is Craig, Delaware, Maids, Ottawa, and Rogers County. So if you're in those areas, James Ladybush says, "Hi guys, love you." Crystal Smotherman says hi. I didn't see what that one said. Okay. June 21st, Crystal says that they're doing registrations and giving information at a soft opening at Sweet Keef Dispensary Farmers Market in Oklahoma City. Nice to know. Nice to know. Alrighty. Well, that catches us up on comments and stuff. I could pick your brain for hours, and I know you would let me. You know what I mean? I just love
Well,
all the knowledge.
my ears perked up about Sweet Pea Dispensary because we would love to share the voter information and strategy training presentation with them, and
Okay.
because I think it's something that every dispensary should get involved in, should make a part of its everyday operation, because their livelihood literally depends on people voting. And
It does.
until we get that, until we get it to the point that we do something about it, we're gonna keep feeling defeated, and we're gonna keep going backwards instead of going forward. There is so much wonderful stuff, potential in the future for medical and recreational. And we haven't even, well, hemp is happening in the backdrop, but it needs policymakers who also understand that Oklahoma led the nation in rope production during World War II, and that we still have that same kind of an agri environment where it grows like that. And so all of that is the truth, is the hard truth for dispensaries to come on and jump on board, and let's figure out a way to collaborate to create this database of people who are actively in the process, meaning they have applied to vote by mail.
Right.
Once they in, we can give them the prompts to renew that application. We can give them the prompts when they should have received one. We can remind them of how they can use it, how they can have ballot parties at dispensaries where everybody marks their ballots together and does a caravan to the county election board, because you never mail in a mail-in ballot. You hand deliver it. This is a program that's available that can do this. And I just want anybody tell me anything else that's going to work. If anybody has something else that will do this, aren't we saying bring it on? But in the meantime, this will work. We used it and unseated a mayor in Forest Park in the recent past. So I know it works. I want it to work for this community.
Right.
And I want to do it. I want it for selfish reasons. I want to still be found trying to make a difference, to be able to be the decider, to push the button about the issues that matter to me, that matter the most to me, and I think that matter to most people. So I have selfish interests, but even if that wasn't the case, I'd still know that this is the way. This is a way. That's what I'm saying. If anybody has another way, tell me, because it's not working. Just registering people to vote is not worth it. It's not working. They register and they don't vote.
No,
So
we need you to actually go out and vote.
We need to actually give people strategies to guarantee that they vote and then vote. We got to educate. We got to inform them about, you can do this, 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 and then you do that. This is what that will mean. And get them to buy into it and actually believe that it matters. Because right now, you see this stuff in your face. Everything that's going on is in your face. It's real. And until you decide to do something different about it, like just try this or try something else. If somebody has something else. Somebody has something else? Just I quit. I'm sorry. Y'all help me. I know I'd be a little stubborn and determined, and and that's just the Taurus in me, y'all. I'm sorry. I
love it.
believe what I believe, and
Tenacious spirit.
yes, stubborn. Determined.
But you know what? Look at all.
No.
Look what you've done with that, though. Look what you've done with that for your career, for your personal life, for all of it. Like, I mean, girl, like you built you. You know.
It was a unique set of characteristics that I hope have been used for the good. When I was being stubborn about something, I hope it was for something good.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Senator Johnson, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today. We've run it over, but we're good with that. I've had fun.
I really appreciate this opportunity to have this with you, Summer. We get along so well. We just struck it off. I think it's about our heartfelt desire for the best for people. Yeah. But just to get this opportunity means so much to me. We were kind of nervous. We didn't know what we were going to talk about and how it was going to flow. And thanks to the people who tuned in and who are commenting, because I want everybody to hear this message, and reach out to me at yesadvocacyworks@gmail.com. Just email me, yesadvocacyworks@gmail.com. I know Crystal Smotherman is on here, and she sent me a copy of one of our PowerPoints. I'm like, dang, that looked pretty good. But, this thing is continually evolving. So, but once we get it to that point, I have no pride of authorship. My pride is in getting it in the hands of people so that we can guarantee that people vote. And we'll share whatever anybody needs to do this, to feel like they can do it too. Just let me know. yesadvocacyworks@gmail.com. You can even text me at 405-537-WEED 9333.
Oh my gosh. I love you for that. The Weed Smoking Center, the last 4 digits of your phone number spells weed. I love it.
But it's amazing how it happened. I didn't know it. And I only looked up in recent years and say, well, dang, that spells weed. Only God would know that number. I used to have a phone number 427-2255, which was 427-CALL. Boy, Southwestern Bell took that from me so quick when I let it lapse. I was like, wow. But 537-WEED. And this is the plant that God made, and I give him glory and honor on this day, for Genesis 1:11, and for his people. What are we going to do together for his people? This is a new day. It's a new opportunity.
Yes, ma'am. All right, Miss Connie, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in OKC soon, and maybe even at the go-kart track.
All righty, let's do it. Take care. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, sweetheart.
Stepping up strong with a righteous plea. Summer Parker fighting for you and me. Patients need what the doctor has said. Safe access now to the meds they bred. One love, one fight, don't you delay. Rights for the people in every way. We stand tall, we won't back down. Safe access is the anthem sound. Safe access is the anthem sound.